Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. So I know that she meant well. But Joan Haney asked me a dumb question this morning. She said, "Do you want to wear the purple set for Advent?" Here's the thing. I have not been an Episcopalian all that long. I came out of a tradition where not only did we not really observe the liturgical colors, it was not unusual for me to be vested on a Sunday morning in my Ravens jersey. So it was a rude awakening when I encountered the reality of the Episcopal Church that if you are clergy, you better not go around wearing purple anywhere. Certainly not in church. Bishops wear purple, and if you wear purple, you're putting on airs. So the only time that a Ravens fan can appropriately wear purple in an Episcopal church is during Advent and Lent. And I'm going to take every opportunity that I possibly can to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joan, for rescuing the set. The reality is, I've had to grow into becoming an Episcopalian. And I was actually talking with the bishop about this a couple of weeks ago, in the wake of visiting with you at All Saints Sunday. In fact, I said, I realized that the main message I had for my friends at All Saints was that we are all saints. You don't have to earn your sainthood. Jesus did that for you. You don't have to try to pass as a saint. You get to live into the reality that you are. You live into this new identity that you have. And I said, I realized that I worked really hard when I was first in our church, especially after I was first ordained, to pass as an Anglican to my colleagues, some of whom had been cradle Episcopalians. They knew I was coming in from outside, and I felt like I had to prove myself. And then I said, but I realized that I'm not an Anglican because I worked hard to be. I'm an Anglican because on August 31st of 2014, at All Saints Church, Bishop, you confirmed me. And I'm an Anglican because you made me one. And now I just get to live into that. I don't have to keep trying so hard to pass. But the moment that I knew for sure that I was Episcopalian was last night, when at about 7 o'clock, my younger daughter, Alicia, some of you may remember knitting with her when she was going through that knitting phase, jumped up from the couch and announced that she was going to make Christmas cookies. And I said, no, young lady, you are not. Because Christmas doesn't come until December 25th. And if you make Christmas cookies now, they'll be stale when Christmas comes. You can make Advent cookies. And then the snowflakes with the blue and white icing, I think those probably could have passed for Hanukkah cookies. But one of the great things about our tradition, the way that our church year works, one of the riches of the liturgy in our tradition is that during Advent, we are waiting for the coming. Now, we're not waiting for the coming of the Christ child. He showed up already. We are waiting for the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ in glory. As we say in the Creed, He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead. His kingdom will have no end. And so as we think back to where God's people were at and awaiting the Messiah, we can resonate with that reality that they were experiencing in the centuries leading up to Christ's birth. But ours is a different situation. And Advent and Christmastide are bookended on the far end with Epiphany, where we recognize and we celebrate the fact that Israel's Messiah isn't just the Messiah for Israel, but He is in fact the Lord of all people. When the wise men, the Magi, show up and bring gifts to the baby Jesus, which incidentally is not something we are supposed to sing about during Advent, as some people do. We're not even supposed to sing about it during Christmastide, and I hate that Wheat Creek King song anyway, but that's an Epiphany song. And that's not just so you can sing about the rubber cigar and whatnot. The whole point of the Epiphany stories is this is demonstrating the nations of the world bringing tribute to the God of Israel. So we have this in all the prophets, almost all the prophets, the scene where in the last day when God establishes his reign in Zion, the nations of the world come bringing not just gifts, not like, housewarming gifts. No, they're bringing the tribute that is proper to a reigning king. They are demonstrating their subjection by bringing tribute to him. And so when these magi from the east, probably these astrologers who were working off of the fumes of the work Daniel had done centuries before, somehow knew that there was supposed to be this star that would portend something really important back in the place his people came from. And when that happened, and when they came and they brought their tribute, they were bringing proper tribute to the proper king. And of course, our last Sunday, in ordinary time, before we start Advent, is Christ the King Sunday, when we recognize the rule and reign of our Lord Jesus Christ, which is and is now in truth and will one day be known in full. And so, when I met with my colleagues this week on Tuesday, as we often do, to study the scriptures for the Sunday, one of my colleagues, in looking at the lecture, said, "Well, it's just doom and gloom again. Maybe I can reach the college." My brothers and sisters, this gospel reading is not doom and gloom. At least it doesn't have to be. It's doom and gloom to those who are God's enemies. It's doom and gloom to those who are opposed to his purposes. It's doom and gloom to those who are in rebellion against him. But for his people, it is the good news of the vindication of his king. It is the good news that he is putting all things to right. And if you don't believe that there are things that need to be put to right, just open up this morning's newspaper. I think if it hadn't been for the death of President Bush, one of ours, by the way, this would have been on the front page. A 52-year-old Harford County woman died early Saturday morning after being stabbed in the chest, according to Baltimore police. Police said Jacqueline Smith and her family were driving through the 1000th block of Valley Street in the Johnston Square neighborhood. This is not a particularly rough neighborhood. This is right by the Meyerhoff and the train station, just east of there. They were driving through that neighborhood when they saw a young woman carrying what appeared to be a baby and holding a cardboard sign that said, "Please help me feed my baby." And Smith, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, rolled down the window to give her money. A man then approached the car and thanked the family before he reached in the car and tried to grab the woman's wallet. After a struggle, the police said, the man took out a knife and stabbed her. The man and the woman who carried the sign fled. Smith was taken to an area hospital where she died. This is not okay. Anybody who tells you that the world just needs a little bit of tuning up is not paying attention. When a person who is responding to a request for charity is not only abused further by being robbed, but is then stabbed, if nothing else gets our attention, this should tell us that all is not right with the world. There is a lot that needs to be fixed. Thanks be to God that we worship a Lord who has the ability to fix all things. The reason we await his coming again in glory to judge the living and the dead is because there's so much people cannot bear a life without gratifying their own desires, no matter what it costs someone else. For those who persist in open rebellion against our Lord, this is not good news. But for those of us who have chosen to receive God's gracious offer, to let his enemies become his friends through the shed blood of his Son, Jesus Christ, this is tremendous good news. So I'll close with this last stanza from a hymn by Paul Gerhardt, that our Lutheran friends have in their hymnal, we don't have in ours. He comes to judge the nations, a terror to his foes, a light of consolations and blessed hope to those who love the Lord's appearing. O glorious Son, now come. Send forth your beams so cheering and guide us safely home.